You know what's frustrating is when you go to make a reel and you take 30 takes of a clip because it wasn't quite right. You don't post something because it doesn't look professional enough. You record a podcast but think the messaging wasn't clear enough, so you re record it up to 3 times. You're writing a blog and it takes you 3 hours instead of 30 minutes. What about this? You don't share a story because your hair needs washing. Or this one, your email is still in drafts because you've only got 47 email subscribers and you're going to wait till you get to 50. Or what about this? You haven't released your podcast yet because you haven't got a fancy intro or outro recorded. Okay, if any of this sounds familiar, you might have content perfectionism. In today's content driven world, how do we move past this? Content perfectionism is an obsessive desire to create flawless content, often driven by the fear of criticism or failure. You may spend excessive amounts of time tweaking and refining your work in pursuit of an unattainable perfect standard. So, how does this differ from striving for excellence? And I'm going to tell you this and I'm going to share this because I am a content perfectionist and I am sharing this story with you in hopes that this may also, I don't know, resonate with you and help move past your perfectionism. Like I am working on mine. What's the difference between a high achiever, someone striving for excellence, and a perfectionist? Well, a high achiever may set the bar high and have massive goals, but they constantly improve to get there. Content perfectionists, well, we have an excessively high personal standard and we're overly critical of ourselves. We become obsessed with any perceived flaws that we have, and this can come at the expense of productivity, and it can have an impact on us not sharing content, which means that we're not helping other people. High achievers, on the other hand, may be satisfied with getting it done and that's okay. Whereas perfectionists, they'll spot mistakes and all the imperfections in something. So, what are the signs that you're a content perfectionist? Spending excessive amounts of time on the minor details. For example, I'm just going to change that text. I'm just going to find the best music for my reel. Feeling really anxious and overwhelmed by the thought of publishing something. It's that fear of imperfect content. And I've done this in my podcast. I've recorded podcasts before and I'm like, nope, that's not good enough. Nope, no. And I've re recorded it 3 times. That's ridiculous. Okay. And what about procrastinating and avoiding the task due to that fear? Now, I remember when I first started creating content on Instagram, I didn't use my personal Instagram page. I actually set up another one. And that was that whole thing of, oh my God, the spotlight is on me and I'm starting out. And especially with the content that I was talking about, creating video content, I should have this nailed. So, this is the whole thing, is that we can actually put off something because we're just so in fear of the task itself, especially when it's our thrive zone of what we're telling other people and teaching other people to do. So, and I guess this is the thing of how many drafts do you have in your reels, your emails, your blogs that you haven't shared yet because of that fear of failure or criticism. And setting unrealistic expectations is another thing. I see this a lot with comparativitis. So comparing ourselves to others. It's, I should be at that level. I should have all of this done. And I think if we're using the words we should, I should, then that's a telltale sign there. Because there's no such thing as should. And when we compare ourselves to what other people have been doing for such a longer time than us, then we have those unrealistic expectations. All or nothing thinking. And I'll go back to the thing of, because I hear this often with podcasts. I haven't released my podcast yet because I don't have my intro recorded. I don't have my outro recorded. I sound nothing like Mel Robbins. Therefore, I'm not going to do it. When I first released my podcast, I put it off for such a long time. And I know that when I actually did release it, I was like, oh my God, that's terrible. And I knew that it wasn't going to be my best podcast. However, I allowed myself some grace. And I even said to somebody, I'm like, I accept that my first 50 podcasts are going to be pretty crap before I get better. And I guess that's the key then, is to give yourself some grace to go, I expect it to be bad before it gets better. Um, and I know this in myself. Okay, my perfectionist, like content perfectionist, traits come in that I do so many retakes. I didn't launch my course because I hadn't put my sales video together. I didn't even launch my website. I kept putting off my website launch because I didn't have all these videos on here. My podcast, I record on a podcast, and I know how to create a beautiful set, but I have this theory is done is better than perfect as well. So this is why I'm showing up for you now. Perfectionists also may tie their identity to their work. So, fearing that any imperfections or perceived imperfections reflect poorly on us. And it's also the mindset that it can create, it's a vicious cycle of self criticism and dissatisfaction. And essentially, all that leads to is you hindering your creativity and your innovation and also the work that you put out there as well. And I want to tell you this story is that quite a few years ago, it was about 14 years ago, I went on a TV show and a reality TV show called MKR. Now, this was the first ever episode, so we didn't really know at all what to expect. Even the episodes following us, they had such a better idea of what they can and can't do. So me, when I got accepted on there, I went on with someone else and who was in it for, a bit of fun where I was there to win. Okay. So my perfectionism was I've got to have a plan. I've got to have a system. I've got to rehearse it. I've got to have all those things. Now that's preparation and a high achieving mentality. The problem that comes into it is my perfectionism of going, when things didn't go to plan in my head and I lost control of what was happening outside my influence of what I could impact, I then got quite affected by it. So even though I had my spreadsheets, like I had everything written up on butcher's paper up on the wall, a next step, do this, I timed everything. What I couldn't foresee was all the things that the production team were going to throw against me. I couldn't control the weather. I couldn't control other people's behaviors. I felt really overwhelmed and dread when I didn't perform to the level that I should have, right? I could have. And I felt the dread of how that reflected on me. And I had a food business at the time. And I'm like, this is not good for my business. So I went into this spiral. In fact, I actually stayed in bed crying all the next day because I just couldn't face that I didn't achieve the level of perfectionism that I had aimed for. How does content perfectionism hinder your productivity? Well, if you're struggling to make decisions about what to make and you don't make anything, if you don't share the reel or the podcast or send the email, that's content perfectionism. It's missed opportunities by not taking action. So when you don't do those things and share that content, you're denying somebody else the help and the impact that you can have on them. And that's why I bring this to attention of going, you miss the opportunities to make progress towards your business goals. When you overthink things and when you second guess things like, should I post it? That's when we get stuck into that paralysis analysis of, doing multiple retakes and we don't send information and share information, and it costs us sales. What is the fear of failure costing you? Well, you may be avoiding taking risks and trying new things. You may try to emulate others as well, and this stops you from showing the real you. Now, it's great to use templates and things to get you started, but what I see is that this striving for perfectionism, which is unrealistic about how someone else is performing rather than you, it's like you will then mimic other people as opposed to being authentically you. And that's what people buy. And I had this question the other day of somebody saying, we're all doing similar things here. Why do they pick me? And I'm like, that's exactly right. When you show up as you and you share what you do your way, that's when people will connect with you and go, oh, yeah. When there's 10 people to choose from that do all the same thing and you show your uniqueness and, your real self, that's what people will connect with and that's what people will buy from you instead of somebody else. When you show up, this is the thing is when you show up as you, that's why people will choose you over someone else. So this is where suppressing the real you is costing you creativity, but it's also costing you business. And I always think about the time that when you've bought something and you're like, oh my God, this has changed my life. Oh my God, this has been so impactful. If that person didn't share what they did with you and denied you getting that help, what would that be like? And that's where I always think on is that think about that one person always. So, how do we overcome our content perfectionism? Well, number one, is having awareness. I have awareness that I am a perfectionist and I do multiple takes on something. So, therefore, I have a goal and I go, how many takes is enough takes before I go, that's enough? Move on, Deb. Okay, so it might be 10 takes. When you're starting out, it's like you have to give yourself grace to go, it's not going to be it's not going to be I just need to share a daily story. That's the goal. So focus on having awareness of it, and then when you have awareness, you appreciate that it isn't going to be perfect. The next thing is embracing the imperfection, is giving yourself permission to be authentically you. And that is so important. So, for example, authentically me is my emails are probably going to always have typos. As much as I spell check them, as much as I give them to other people to check, there's probably links and typos that are always going to be in my emails. And that's my imperfections. And I apologize if you get one of my emails that has all those things wrong with it, but that's okay. I give myself grace. And in fact, I embrace it now of going, there is actually studies to show that when you do have typos in your emails, it increases people's readability because then they keep searching. That's a whole other mind game thing. Anyway, just send the email. Podcasts. When I started, I went, yep, I can do an intro and outro and all the things, but execution was my goal. So therefore, getting it done was the most important thing. So I didn't have fancy intros recorded and outros and all of the things. In fact, I actually didn't want it because I knew that would slow down progress. And also, it's something that isn't actually needed to create a podcast. There are so many amazing creators that don't use that. And in fact, I always fast forward them anyway. So that's why I wasn't going to. If your socials and you're doing stories and you are turning up going, hi, my name is, and doing lots of ums and ahs, give yourself grace that it's okay to do it. I would much rather see you turn up and make those things to build your confidence and have those ums and ahs and things than not turn up at all, because you can always get better at those. You can always get better. Okay, this is another thing that I do. I don't stare at the camera, right? And when I'm recording a story, I'll often be looking here, there, and everywhere. And somebody mentioned this to me the other day, going, hey, Deb, do you know you don't look at the camera? And like when you talk, and I'm like, yeah, I'm aware of it. I actually did it this morning when I was in the hotel room and I was recording a story, and I knew that I wasn't looking at the camera because I was just running out the door, and I was like, no, I'm going to post this story. And I accepted that it wasn't perfect. I wasn't, doing all the right things, but it was more important for me to share the story because of the engagement that I got from it. Other people didn't care about where I was looking. All they cared about that is I didn't have my glasses on. I couldn't read the cleanser was actually moisturizer I was putting on my face. Okay, so this is where we can hold ourselves back by that feeling of I've got to retake that 10 times. No, I just needed to share my story and get out the door because that's what made conversation in my DMs results. All right, so what's the other thing? And this is a big thing. Don't expect a 10 out of 10. Start with 50%. So if you are starting out creating content, or you're holding yourself back from, sending an email, doing a blog, sharing a reel on social media, creating a podcast, expect that you are only going to be 50%. Do 50% perfect, okay? Don't aim for 10. When you get to, so this is when that's done is better than perfect. So in my course last year and in my membership, this year with Content Catalyst, I talk about the 3 levels. Done is better than perfect. Then we level up and then we nail it and move on to something else. Okay. So make it 50%, aim for 50%. That is done is better than perfect. Then level up to 70%. Okay. So when you get to 70%, cool, done, tick that box. And then nailing it isn't also a 10 out of 10. It's probably only an 80%, and then move on to something else. Okay. So don't expect a 10 out of 10. This is the next point, is how do we get past our content perfectionism, is stop caring what other people think. Really? And this is probably I know my mum, she is, oh, people are going to say what are people going to think? Oh, people are saying, and I always come back with, what other people think of me is none of my business. Keep rehearsing that in your head. Keep saying that in your head, is what other people think of me is none of my business. I want you to focus on the one person who you can impact and make great change for when you show up. Take a moment to think about that. Who is your one person? Now, inside Content Catalyst, which is my marketing membership, we are talking about this very topic this month. And that is, when you know your one person, your ideal audience, and you think about just that one person and their problems, their challenges, their pain points, and their aspirations, and what motivates them, that's when you stop focusing on what people are thinking in me, and then you start focusing on the people that you can help and the impact that you can have. Next thing is celebrate progress over perfection. How do we do this? Well, what's our goal? Our goal is to share a story every day. Why? Because we want to engage with our audience that we already, all of our followers on Instagram now. Okay, so when we get to sharing a story every day, okay, celebrate that. Know that, and stories are a great place to start with, by the way. If you are shy about turning up on camera, or you're building up your confidence, start with sharing stories every day, because you know what? 24 hours, they're done and dusted. Doesn't matter what you said yesterday, because it's already gone. Move on. So it's a wonderful place to start with. And then when you've done a story every day, celebrate that. Yes, I did it. Think about who has seen your story and what was the conversations that went on in your DMs because of those stories. Think about when you posted a story and you ran a poll and you got all that valuable feedback from people that you can then use to help other people. The other thing I'm going to recommend is join a community to encourage you and support you, whether that's a business community, whether it's accountability group, but having a community of people that are there to rally around you, to go as your cheer squad. They're not focusing on, oh, geez, you stuffed up all your stories today. That was terrible email you sent. I hated that podcast. They're there as your cheer squad to help you and cheer you on. Now, I want you to think about this as, do you have a community around you? When I launched Content Catalyst this month, that was my number one priority, is to build a community so we can cheer each other on, give each other that wonderful support that we all need, because business can be a very lonely place and we need that support to help us. So be kind to yourself, and remember, when you first learnt to drive a car, you didn't just hop in it and check your mirrors and put your seatbelt on and reverse park all the thing. No, if you're anything like me, you probably scraped the wheels, reverse parking, and ran over bumps and forgot to check your mirrors. That's okay. It's the same thing when we start to create content as well. Just give yourself a break. So join a community, have that support, set time limits of your task, and just do it. Just press record, just press go on the email, just put it out there, because you never know who you could help with it. Takes. If you are retaking content, going, this is my 20th go at recording this part of this reel, take it back. Instead of trying to record all the 30 seconds, just do 5-second blocks. Stop, start, stop, start. Okay, and then move on. I have a thing where I record my reels and content in Instagram stories, and I only download the take that I want to keep. such a powerful thing. Otherwise, I already have thousands of videos already in my album, but this stops me having tens of thousands. Okay, finding the right balance between quality and productivity. So focus on creating content that is meaningful and impactful rather than obsessing over those minor details. Striving for excellence is great, and do that. So we always want to think about leveling up, and everything that I share, I think, in Content Catalyst is all about leveling up. But first of all, we have to take those steps to just getting it done and not letting that perfectionism get in the way of progress. And then you can continuously refine from there. And the other thing I want to share with you is, as a perfectionist, as a content perfectionist, hearing feedback is hard. It's so hard for us, especially when we know that we do it and that we can do better. So, how do we get past that? Well, when we can view criticism, look, this is the thing. When somebody is giving you feedback and you're not prepared for it, it we view it as a reflection on our self-worth, and then we go into a spiral of self-criticism, and it can actually shatter our confidence, and it can stop us even making content. And I don't want that for you. And I know I've done all of these things. So, how do we get feedback so we can continue to grow and learn and improve? So, here are my tips of going: have a content community where you feel supported, and then you can invite a debrief. So, it might be at the end of the month, you review your content, and then you can go, what are 3 things that I've ticked as done is better than perfect? Okay. So when you do that, you feel that you've done 3 things right. Okay. And then you can ask for feedback, invite feedback, as in what is the one thing I can do to level up, that I can improve on. Okay. So when you do it like this, you're getting 3 wins to 1 feedback to level up. Okay. So it's not, 3 things I've got to improve on. It's what's 3 things I've done great, and what's 1 thing I can improve on. What's 1 thing I can level up. When you do it like this, it takes the sting out of the criticism, and it takes the hurt out of going, we can do better. All right. So just be aware of who you ask feedback from, and you can even be upfront and say, just to let you know, I don't take criticism very well. I am a content perfectionist, and I am working through it. So, be kind on me. Let people know, and that's okay as well. Share your struggles and your wins. And when you do that, you can tell people that, oh my God, this is what I did, but I did this instead. And I'm going to tell you a story. Okay. So last week I drove to the Gold Coast and I went up there for a conference. Now, I got up, I had a lot on the week before, and I hadn't recorded my podcast. And I was like, I knew what the topic was and I had to put it out there. I just needed to record it. So I got up extra early in the morning and I thought, right, I've got an hour to get this recorded, edited, posted, and pushed out. Now I recorded it and I went to edit it, and I'm like, oh my God, my microphone, that it's not on. It wasn't on. So I recorded it again. I went to edit it and I'm like, oh my God, now there's no volume. And then I looked down to re-record and I'm like, I hadn't even plugged in my mic. Like, hello, this is me. This is what I teach, and I stuffed up. Okay, so here's the thing. I got to the stage where I'm like, 3rd time, I've just got to get this done. And before I, left and hopped on the road, I literally went, bam, it's going to be done. Today, there is going to be no intro. There's going to be no outro. It is literally, I have to accept that this is done better than perfect. Now, yes, I really want to re-record that episode so bad. I really do. However, instead of spending the time re-recording that episode, today I'm recording this episode. So if you have gotten any worth, value, enlightenment, reassurance out of this episode, let me know. Tag me in stories on Instagram, send me a message. I'd love to know, because this is about working through those things and going, if I had re-recorded that episode, sure, but then I would have not shared this with you. So it's okay. If you're struggling with content perfectionism, have awareness, get support. Remember, done is better than perfect. And just always think about that one person that you can help and you can change their world when you share your message. Now, Content Catalyst is my member community. It's a marketing hub where we learn and implement and support each other to grow our business, and we take action. And this is where we get things done and then we level up. So if you'd like to know more, Content Catalyst, I've got a founding member offer for the month of April. So you can save 50% right now. And if you jump onto my website, which is debzarbo.com, all the details are there and you can see what we do. There's a momentum path of all the content that we cover for the year. And each month we have a masterclass. So this is where we learn. And then we have 2 workrooms each month, which is where we take action. And when we take action, that's when we get results. And of course, then you've got this beautiful community inside who are there to cheer you on and support you to get things done as well. So until the next episode, thank you so much for spending this time with me, and happy recording. Go do it. You can do it. I believe in you. See ya.